advantage of Ross Murdock. He'd grab it for sure. "There is a government project in need of volunteers. It seems that you have tested out as possible material for this assignment. If you sign for it, the law will consider the time spent on it as part of your sentence. Thus you may aid the country which you have heretofore disgraced." "And if I refuse, I go to this rehabilitation? Is that right, sir?" "I certainly consider you a fit candidate for rehabilitation. Your record—" He shuffled through the papers on his desk. "I choose to volunteer for the project, sir." The judge snorted and pushed all the papers into a folder. He spoke to a third man who'd been waiting in the shadows. "Here, then, is your volunteer, Major." Ross bottled in his relief. He was over the first hump, and since his luck had held so far, he might be about to win all the way. The man Judge Roll called Major moved into the light. At first glance, Ross, to his hidden annoyance, found himself uneasy. To face up to Eaglebeak was all part of the game, but somehow he sensed one did not play such games with this man. "Thank you, Your Honor. We will be on our way at once, before the weather sucks us in completely." Before he realized what was happening, Ross found himself walking meekly to the door. He considered trying to give the Major the slip when they left the building, losing himself in a storm-darkened city, but they did not take the elevator downstairs. Instead, they climbed 2 or 3 flights up the emergency stairs. And to his humiliation, Ross found himself panting and slowing, while the other man, who must have been a good dozen years his senior, showed no signs of discomfort. They came out into the wind and snow on the roof, and the Major flashed a torch toward a dark shadow waiting for them with rotating blades. A helicopter. For the first time, Ross began to doubt the wisdom of his choice. "Keep away from the tail rotors, Murdock." The voice was impersonal enough, but that very impersonality got under one's skin. Bundled into the machine between the silent Major and an equally quiet pilot in uniform, Ross was lifted over the city, whose ways he knew as well as he knew the lines on his own palm, into the unknown he was already beginning to regard dubiously. The lighted streets and buildings, their outlines softened by the soft, wet snow, fell out of sight. Now they could mark the outer highways. Ross refused to ask any questions. He could take this silent treatment. He had taken a lot of tougher things in the past. The patches of light disappeared, and the country opened out. The plain banked. Ross, with all the familiar landmarks of his world gone, could not have said if they were headed north or south. But moments later, not even the thick curtain of snowflakes could blot out the pattern of red lights on the ground, and the helicopter settled down. "Come on." For the second time, Ross obeyed. He stood shivering, engulfed in a miniature blizzard. His clothing, protection enough in the city, did little good against the push of the wind. A hand gripped his upper arm, and he was drawn forward to a low building. A door banged, and Ross and his companion came into a region of light and very welcome heat. "Sit down, over there." Too bewildered to resent orders, Ross sat. There were other men in the room. One, wearing a queer suit of padded clothing, a bulbous helmet hooked over his arm, was reading a paper. The Major crossed to speak to him, and after they conferred for a moment, the Major beckoned Ross with a crooked finger. Ross trailed the officer into an inner room lined with lockers. From one of the lockers, the Major pulled a suit like the pilot's and began to measure it against Ross. "All right," he snapped. "Climb into this. We haven't all night." Ross climbed into the suit. As soon as he fastened the last zipper, his companion jammed one of the domed helmets on his head. The pilot looked in the door. "We'd better scramble, Kilgaris, or we may be grounded for the duration." They hurried back to the flying field. If the helicopter had been a surprising mode of travel, this new machine was something straight out of the future. A needle-slim ship poised on fins, its sharp nose lifting vertically into the heavens. There was a scaffolding along one side, which the pilot scaled to enter the ship. Unwillingly, Ross climbed the same ladder, and found that he must wedge himself in on his back, his knees hunched up almost under his chin. To make it worse, cramped as those quarters were, he had to share them with the Major. A transparent hood snapped down and clicked secure, sealing them in. During his short lifetime, Ross had often been afraid, bitterly afraid. He'd fought to toughen his mind and body against such fears. But what he experienced now was no ordinary fear. It was panic so strong that it made